everyone. This is the Buttercup podcast where we talk about early childhood topics. Today, and my name is Marissa Macy, and I'm the host of the Buttercup podcast. I am so excited today because today I have a special guest. It's Miss Michelle Kang, and she serves as the Chief Executive Officer for the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or NAEYC. It's a global association advocating for high-quality early learning for all children. Prior to becoming CEO, Ms. Kang served as NAEYC's inaugural Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, in which she oversaw the strategy and daily operations for membership, early learning program accreditation, publications, conference, market solutions, and global engagement. During her tenure, the organization dramatically pivoted to serve the field through the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, including successfully conducting virtual conferences, serving thousands of educators, the first ever symposium on developmentally appropriate practice, and Virtual Professional Learning Institute that delivered more than 235,000 certificates of professional development. Wow, that is a lot of people. She has guided the substantial system adjustments necessary to support childcare and preschools attaining and maintaining accreditation through the pandemic, and shepherded the development and launch of the fourth edition of NAEYC's Developmentally Appropriate Practice book, a critical text used widely as the basis for quality early learning. Prior to joining NAEYC, she served in leadership roles at Bright Horizons, an international provider of early education, most recently as Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Operational Strategy. Her 16-year tenure at Bright Horizons included building partnerships with leading global employers to develop and implement dependent care supports, childcare, backup care, and educational advising services. In building these partnerships, she gained a deep appreciation for the life-changing work that early educators do every day. That's so true. That's awesome. Drawing on her experiences as the daughter of Korean immigrants, Ms. Kang is committed to creating belonging within organizations and developing inclusive leadership and mentoring opportunities. Also an ardent supporter of higher education student development, Ms. Kang has served as a Resident Tutor and Scholar at Harvard University and as a member of the Student Engagement and Leadership Advisory Board for the College of William and Mary. Ms. Kang holds a bachelor's degree from the College of William and Mary, a master's of education in leadership and policy from the University of Virginia, and Masters of Science in Industrial Relations and Human Resource Management from Said Business School at the University of Oxford in the UK. She and her husband live in Maryland with their 3 children. Welcome, Ms. Kang.
Thank you, Marissa. It's so nice to be here with you today.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the early education field?
I would love to. It is so great to be here with you today and to share a little bit, to give me the opportunity to share a little bit about my story and how I ended up at NAEYC. From a fairly early time, I knew my passion was to make a difference for young children. As you heard, I'm the oldest child of Korean immigrants, and I watched and supported my parents as they juggled the challenges of jobs with the health and education of their children, and all of this without having a strong grasp of their adopted country's language and culture. They were each the first person on both sides of their family to come to the United States, and they navigated learning how to support family, their siblings, and their parents. And frankly, I'm still in awe of their courage with the hope of providing opportunities for their family. My father came to the US with 1 suitcase and $200, and my mother immigrated after finishing nursing school to a place where they had no family and friends and a language that wasn't their own. So over the years, my parents did what many parents of young children did. They brought my grandparents to live with us for a period of time. They enrolled my siblings and me in a church preschool, and they chose to work different schedules to balance the competing needs of childcare and work. I have this early distinct memory of watching television with my grandmother, my Halmeni, as a way to learn English. English was my second language, and I acutely experienced what it felt to not have the words to communicate. And over the years, I served as a translator of both language and culture for my family, and it helped me gain a deep appreciation early on of the challenges of navigating caregiving, education, and culture, something that is also a very common experience for so many early educators, given the diversity of our field. As with many Korean parents, my parents were heartened to hear that my interest in young children might translate to becoming a doctor. Becoming a pediatrician seemed appropriate for my interests. However, my interest in studies took me away from medicine and actually instead towards education, policy, and business. And through my studies and work opportunities, it became apparent to me that there is no better investment than in early childhood. The early years of brain development are the most critical, and thus early childhood is the most impactful time for ensuring that young children are supported. And I was particularly interested in seeing how businesses could support working families through intentional investments in high quality early learning, which is what led me to the organization Bright Horizons after a chance meeting with one of the founders, Linda Mason, while I was studying in the UK. While I was at Bright Horizons, I worked to convince employers that it makes business sense to invest in high quality early education programs for their employees and for their workforce. And this is actually how I first learned about NAEYC. I learned about NAEYC because of its early learning standards and its program accreditation. I understood that when employers sponsored childcare at a NAEYC accredited program, families knew that their children were in a high quality program, and the employers are committed to quality, both for the families and their employees, but also for the educators. As a working parent myself, I've had the chance to experience the joys of employer-sponsored childcare and the benefits of on-site childcare. I had the incredible privilege of being able to take my first son to a safe, developmentally appropriate learning environment in an accredited program. The center director and educators became part of my family. And following my first son, I had two more sons, and all of the early educators that cared for my sons became part of my family. And as I reflect on my own experiences and thinking about the difference that they made in my life, it is that compels me some days when I think about how we want to lift up what I hope that every working parent or any parent who wants a high quality early education should have access to.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Kang. Michelle, the same thing happened to me. I learned how to speak English from watching TV with my grandparents in the
Oh,
room. They didn't speak any English, and it was from watching Mr. Rogers and other shows too, probably. But I remember watching him, and he spoke really slow, and I just felt like I could trust him, and I just loved his show. And I just remember thinking, someday I want to grow up and be like him. I just but he spoke slowly, and I just loved how he just like would draw you in. That is great. I love your story. And
well, Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street were among the shows that my grandmother and I would watch together. And I have many early memories of learning early literacy, facts and figures, math, words, just from listening and watching. And I agree with you. Mr. Rogers spoke slowly, which was helpful for someone who was learning English.
yeah, yeah. Uh, that's wonderful. So what's the best part about your position at NAEYC? There's
There's
so
some,
many wonderful parts.
yes, there really are so
Yeah,
many
to just pick
wonderful.
one, or
But
what do you
if
love
I
about
if I had to pick one, it is the opportunity to work on creating and making a space of belonging for anyone who cares about early education. I want NAEYC to be a place where if you believe in high quality early learning for young children and for educators who are supported in their profession, that this is an organization that sees you, includes you, and you feel that you are belonging here. And I am excited about the opportunity to do that with an amazing team of people who are dedicated and passionate about the work that we do on behalf of serving the field every day. The team members who work at NAEYC, some people come from early education, others have come from other walks and perspectives, but every single person here cares for our members and for this field and serving them. And we are all passionate about creating this space of belonging for our members in the field. We want to do this so that anyone who is in the field, no matter your role, whether you're an infant teacher, a center program director, a first grade teacher, a family child care advocate or affiliate leader, one of our interest forum volunteers, no matter who you are, if you are connected to early education, that you see that this organization believes in you, sees you, lifts you up, and that we are centering our work on the stories of the work that you are doing every day. That is the best part of being at NAEYC, is working alongside phenomenally committed, passionate people and serving an amazing field.
Yes, that is awesome. Thank you. Yes, NAEYC elevates our workforce, and I can't wait for the conference in November. It's going to be so much fun when we all get together for the first time since the pandemic in Washington, D.C. And my students are going to be watching this or listening to the podcast. What advice do you have for students who are thinking of a career in early childhood education?
So first, I would say you are about to embark on some of the most important and powerful work that can be done in our communities and in our country. Early childhood educators have an enormous influence on the lives of young children. And the field is rich in diversity, in the stories, in the context of the people who have chosen to serve and to educate and to provide caring. And it's an incredible profession. We have this long history of focusing on equity and holding up a mirror to ourselves in service of being able to advance a field that believes in understanding the context in which young children come to our programs every day and looking for ways to lift them up, to show them the joy of play, and to be able to see the richness of all the different stories that people are in. So the fact that early educators are caring for and at the intersection of all the stories of these different families, what their lives are like, the languages they speak, the communities that they come from, and that we have the opportunity to help advance education in equitable ways and creating environments where children thrive is an enormous responsibility, but enormous privilege and enormously rewarding. We're doing brain building work. We're doing foundations of learning. We're helping people learn how to relate to peers, to family, to their community. I heard a quote once that early childhood education is the strongest version of nation building. And I fundamentally believe that that is true. So for those who are considering being in this field, for those who are pursuing a degree in this field, we acknowledge that there are still lots of complexities, that there are still many challenges, one of which is how the profession has been structured or unstructured. But we are working on that. And there is a collective movement of many organizations, but NAEYC in particular, that is going to continue to lean into lifting up this profession and advocating for structures and supports and recognition, all the way from structures of learning to compensation that shows the value of what the work is that people are doing every day in early education. So I would say, thank you for thinking about the commitment to doing this work. Thank you for bringing your passion. And we need you. We need you and your voice to continue to show the life-changing work that early childhood educators do every day.
Yes, thank you so much. Wow, that was wonderful. Beautifully said. If you were going to write a headline about the most important thing in early childhood education, what would the headline be?
Well, if I were going to write a headline right now, the headline would focus on the workforce and the crisis we are experiencing. Is unfortunately, the pandemic had taken away the shaky foundation that the field has always been on. And so what I would say is a headline might say something like early childhood educators, a field in crisis and in need of support, because we need to continue to recognize that this field is been in an untenable situation, and the pandemic unfortunately made things more challenging. But I'm an optimist, and because I'm an optimist and believe that we can and will continue to have people recognize the value of the work that early childhood educators do, I'd like to write a headline for the future that our country has recognized the importance of investment in early childhood education, and maybe something like a historic investment in childcare ensures all young children can thrive. So that
Ooh,
I am thinking ahead towards a future headline that isn't is reflective of the challenges of today.
that's great. Thank you. Um, I have a former student who she works at the Hunt Institute, and not too long ago there was a big event in Arizona, and you got to be there along with many other people, and um, I just I think it's so neat when we can all be together and work hand in hand and uh, continue to lift up the workforce and support children and families through the work that we do. What quote or motto best defines your outlook on education?
Well, there are many quotes that have been meaningful to me over time, but I would share that one of my favorite quotes right now is from Amanda Gorman, who was the poet laureate who spoke at the inauguration of President Biden. And taking from one of her poems, she had said that day, "There is always a light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." And that speaks to me in terms of looking out in terms of an outlook on education.
Yes, definitely. Oh, I love that. Who's someone who inspires you?
Um, my mother, who passed away some time ago, always believed in the good in people and taught us that we have such great opportunity in all we do with our lives to love and serve. So I think about her every day, being in this role, having the humble privilege to serve a field that every day cares for children 0 to 8, supports them, supports their families, recognizes the context in which they are coming to learn, promotes play, and frankly, loves and serves every day. So I think of my mother often because I am grateful to have the opportunity to use this platform, my platform as CEO, to lift up the stories and the work that early educators do, and to have the opportunity to love and serve in this role.
Oh, what was her name, Michelle?
Her name was Miwa.
Miwa.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. Are there any innovations or practices that excite you today?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, there are so many challenges right now in the field, and I don't want to be remiss in not highlighting that there are challenges. I mean, certainly want to not demotivate early childhood students to not pursue this field, but the pandemic did make it glaringly obvious how critical childcare is in supporting and sustaining our nation's economy, and that it's an integral piece into ensuring that our country, will need childcare in order to recover from the blow of the pandemic. And I've been heartened by the way that communities and our society is engaged in conversations about childcare, about how it's moved beyond a concern for just a few and instead has become something that is part of conversations. You mentioned the Hunt Institute conference. One of the things that was so exciting about that event is it was policymakers on all sides of the aisle agreeing that investing in early learning is good practice, that it wasn't an issue that is seen as a blue issue or as a red issue, that it is seen as an issue that is important for our communities or for our economy, for businesses. I heard business leaders sitting on the stage talking about how they realized that if they weren't helping to solve through the childcare crisis, that they weren't able to have employees come to work because no one is going to leave their child if they can help it in an unsafe situation that is not developmentally appropriate. So I am heartened by hearing the conversations of folks who are recognizing the importance of childcare. And so when I think about practices and innovations, I think that there are finally conversations in states and localities about how early childhood education is critically important. A couple highlights, I was thinking about in the state of Connecticut, how they have just rolled out a system of quality for measuring their quality that simplifies how programs and providers, from family childcare providers to center-based providers, schools, can pursue and integrate quality in their practices in a very simple three level manner. And they've recognized national accreditation systems, inclusive of NAEYCs, as the way to be able to define what quality is. And I think that is making use of, again, a structure and system that is already backed up by science and the research of what is good for young children. I'm also just excited about the ways that even in the pandemic, that early educators have leaned into continuing to grow their practice, to challenge themselves, to continue to think about ways that they are supporting young children and families. 2 years ago, we 3 years ago, we actually provided updated position statements on the developmentally appropriate practice, but also published our first statement on equity. And building off the equity and developmentally appropriate practice position statements, we revised the fourth edition of developmentally appropriate practice, which you mentioned earlier. And one of the things that I've been really excited to hear about is how in different communities, in higher ed, in programs, that people are utilizing the position statements and the book to be able to grow intentional conversations around how that can be reflected in the work that they do day to day in classrooms. Talking about what does it mean in family partnerships. Family partnerships is actually going to be the focus of one of our upcoming journals. And, I can't say enough about thinking about how important and valuable those educator family partnerships are. And I think in the pandemic, we had to get creative about how we stayed connected when we weren't having families come into programs because of health and safety reasons. So I heard about all of these ways that educators and programs have been innovating around how they stay connected to families, whether they use, new technology platforms or set up Zoom calls, with families at different times, because families don't want to miss the learning, and they need and want the insight of early childhood educators to help them understand and navigate what might be happening. So, that's really exciting. And every day I have assessors who are all over the country visiting programs, who are looking at early learning programs and observing practices, and they come back and tell me the most amazing things about the things that they are seeing in terms of interactions. They talk about the ways that programs, again, have said, all right, well, we had to change our health and safety practices. How are we going to continue to do sensory play? How are we going to continue to do some of the engaging things that we know that are so critical for early childhood? So I have a lot of, we know our field is so incredibly resilient, and I have a lot of hope and energy and optimism when I hear about how our field doesn't let a pandemic take away from what we want to continue to do for supporting early learning. And I'm excited about, frankly, what I know was still ahead in the future, because if there's one thing about our field, is we are always innovating, and it's exciting.
Yes, it is so exciting. And you're right. Early childhood educators are so resilient. And when the pandemic first happened, um, my students were out in the field with children, and then like right around St. Patrick's Day, that's kind of when everything happened, and they had to leave their field placements, and some of them didn't even get to say goodbye.
Mhm.
And that first group didn't even have a graduation, and neither did the second group. And a lot of graduations were happening online or not at all. They totally got canceled. And I remember we always had this showcase at the end of the semester where students showcased a project that they did. And one of the students, at the end of her presentation, she had a slide, and she said, global pandemic could not stop my education. And when she said that, we were all crying. We were just like, yes, that's right. not going to take us down. We can do this. And I've always remembered that comment. I mean, that was 2020 when that happened, over 2 years ago now. But I put it on a Post-it note, and I had it by my screen for a long time. And it just, it was very empowering to hear her say that a global pandemic could not stop my education. And we are so resilient. Well, Michelle, what's been the highlight of your career so far, and what are you looking forward to in the future?
Honestly, it's a highlight to be able to be in this role as a leader of an organization that is about to celebrate 100 years. I'm so honored and excited about the fact that I'm the first CEO of Asian Heritage. I'm also excited about this moment because our governing board president, Natalie Vega O'Neill, is the first Latina governing board president. So we are excited to be able to bring our stories and our voices on behalf of the field to the leadership of this organization. And I do consider it such a privilege, and I am humbly grateful every day to be able to have this role, to be able to center on the stories of educators, to use this platform to lift up the roles and the work that early childhood educators do every day, caring for young children, to think about those who are in this field, who are serving that 0 to 8 segment, and to relentlessly advocate for the support that is needed in order for us to do this work, because our field is currently structured in such a way that is truly untenable. And I am committed to being able to have this organization support those who want to do this work, to be compensated appropriately, to be supported appropriately, to be able to grow a career, and to be able to do a lifetime of life-changing work. So I say that the highlight right now is to be in the moment. I'm someone who lives in the moment, and to be in this moment right now. I'm so grateful to have the chance to share a bit of my story with you and your listeners. I hope that if folks are not members of NAEYC or not connected to NAEYC, that you will connect to us. And because we need your voice, we need the collective voices and advocacy of not just the educators, but those who are realizing how important early education is for all of us. I felt like I realized that in spades when I became a parent myself and had my 3 boys all go through early childhood education environments. And I am excited, but know there's a lot of work to be done to continue to advance our field to be seen in the way that they need to be seen.
Yes, and one of the wonderful things about NAEYC is the professional community, and being a member of a professional community, whether you're a student or you're already serving and you're an in-service professional, um, it gives you other people to connect to, where you don't feel like you're alone and you can learn from each other, and you can have mentors, or you can be a mentor, and we need each other. And it's so nice when we can be a part of NAEYC and a family of other people who are like-minded, have similar goals, and care deeply about children and families. So students, if you're not a member yet, become a student member, because that's the best time. It doesn't cost as much. Professional membership is a little bit more, but if you can enroll and become a member when you're a student, it just it's such a nice way to begin a career early on. And I love the journals that we get when you're a member, and the conferences. And if you're part of the state chapter, you can go to your state chapter meetings, and even within the state chapter and the bigger chapter, I mean the national organization, there's so many different things that you might connect to and you might like. I remember a play chapter that I was part of that I just loved, everything about the work that was being done in that play chapter. And at our state conference, we'd have a playroom, and you could go and you could be like a kid again. You could bring your own kids if you had family or children that wanted to come to the conference. But it was just so innovative because you could practice different ideas and have people to talk to and see what they're doing too. So membership is great. Thank you so much, Ms. Michelle Kang. How can Buttercup listeners or viewers follow you?
Well, I want to first thank you before I answer that question to say this has been so delightful. And you highlighted our affiliates, and I would be remiss in not just saying that you are absolutely right. We are a community. Our affiliates are amazing. We have 51 of them all across the country who are truly the grassroots of the organization, connected into folks and, creating local gatherings and spaces of learning and connection and community. We certainly do it on the national level too, but I do hope that when people get connected to us, they do find that they are finding a place where they belong. You belong here. We want you here, and we want to serve you and care for you. So I am delighted to be able to hopefully connect with members and with educators as I travel. I hope that there will be an opportunity for me to come to Nebraska. So maybe that's something for the future. But in terms of following me, I would love if people follow. NAEYC has a social media account on all the different platforms, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. I have a Twitter handle. People can follow me at Michelle NAEYC, but also follow at NAEYC. You can also follow America for Early Ed, which is an organization that's connected to us doing the policy advocacy work. And also connect with me on LinkedIn. So I am excited to be able to have some more folks who are going to connect with us and follow us. And I look forward to having your voices as part of our collective voice.
Thank you so much. I'm just so excited. And yes, I can't wait till you come to Nebraska. It's going to be awesome.
Great.
And
I'm looking forward to it.
In Washington, D.C. in November.
Yes.
Well, thanks a million, Miss Michelle Kang. You have just been such a pleasure, and thank you so much for your leadership. You're such a strong advocate for children and families and our workforce, and thanks for all that you're doing for us.
Well, thank you, and for your continued work on behalf of the profession and championing what we know is all good and right for children and for educators. So I'm excited and delighted to make your acquaintance and look forward to seeing you in November.